Hi, I'm Tony Van Veen, CEO of Discmakers. It's March, summer touring season will be here before you know it. Many big slots for concerts and festivals have already been filled, but there's still time to get your concert set up. Question is, can today's independent artists actually afford to tour? It's a question British distributor Ditto Music recently asked 1,500 independent artists. They found that over half of those independent artists had turned down touring opportunities for financial reasons. If you've toured or tried to set up a tour, that's probably not surprising news. Despite the headlines shouting that Taylor Swift and Beyonce grossed over $1 billion each on their tours, the fact is that the vast majority of emerging and independent artists end up subsidizing their tours out of their own pockets. In other words, most independent artists lose money on touring. As industry pundit Bobby Owsinski points out in a recent article in Hypebot, with the exception of the top 1%, or I imagine maybe the top 3% or so of artists, there's not a lot of profit in touring nowadays. Everyone thinks the other guy is making money, the venue, the artist, the booker, but for most tours of emerging and mid-level artists, there's just not that much profit to divvy up between all the parties once all the expenses have been paid. Venue expenses like rent and insurance have gone way up post-pandemic. People are spending less at the bar, which is a big deal for venues. There are fewer venues out there and more competition for performance slots, so venues end up having to pay less to artists eager to play. I know, it's a downer. So if you want to perform live this summer, what should you do? Here's a few suggestions. Start locally. Find local venues that book local artists, even if it's on an opening slot. Look for alternative venues like restaurants, bars, or beer gardens. Staying local brings your expenses way down. Less gas money to pay, no lodging to worry about. You may not make a ton of money, but you likely won't have to come out of pocket to cover your expenses. Once you've built a beefy local following, then you can start thinking about expanding regionally. Start by booking individual out-of-town concerts. Like, I live in Philly. Back in the day, way back in the day, when we were performing, we'd book a weekend night slot or sometimes even a weeknight slot in Baltimore or New York City and just drive up and back same day. Once that starts working, do some short weekend jaunts. We would hit Boston, Connecticut, and New York in a weekend. Yes, it's a lot of miles in one weekend, and while your costs are certainly higher than if you did just a one-time performance, you are keeping your costs down compared to booking a long multi-city tour, which is just more expensive. If you're doing weekends or longer tours, one way to keep those costs down is to team up with another band to share gear and maybe carpool. Another is to build relationships in the cities where you're going to be performing and couch surf. Some of those relationships can be built up ahead of time on the concerts, through networking. Sometimes it's just about meeting cool people at the venue who will offer you their pad to crash if you're nice to them. Of course, couch surfing isn't for every age or every genre. Just realize that if you've got to book a hotel every night for multiple band members, your odds of covering your touring costs are pretty much zero. One last quick tip. If you want a shot at covering your touring expenses, you need to make sure you're set up to maximize your income while on the road. That means having CDs, LPs, and other merch available for sale. The margins on merch sales are huge if you do it right. If a CD costs you $2 to make and you sell it for $12 to $15 at your concert, that's a profit margin of over 80%. A t-shirt that costs $5 to screen print and sells for $20 or $25, again, 75 to 80% profit margin. And vinyl records that you press for $7 to $10 each can earn you 50 to 75% profits if you sell them for $20 or $25. The thing that works in your favor with merch is that at those kinds of margins, you don't need to sell a lot of product to cover your manufacturing costs. And once your cost of manufacturing CDs or vinyl are covered, the rest of your sales dollars are pure profit that can go to defraying your expenses on the road. Hey, no one said this music thing was going to be easy, and yet, here we are. I hope these tips were helpful. Go forth and prosper.